हेलो वेलकम बैक टू द चैनल। ये डे 2 का टारगेट है एक्चुअल में, ठीक है। तो यहाँ पर सर ने बताया कि पार्लियामेंट और पार्लियामेंट्री कमेटी और पार्लियामेंट कमिटीज़ इन दो चैप्टर्स को पढ़ने के लिए। तो ये वाला जो चैप्टर है यहाँ पर लगभग 90 पेजेस है, 478 से देख सकते हो लगभग फ्रॉम यहाँ से 568 पेज तक ये चैप्टर है। तो 90 पेजेस हम कोशिश करेंगे कि इस एक वीडियो में इस पूरा 90 पेज को पढ़ने का। देखते हैं हो पाता कि नहीं। चलिए, द पार्लियामेंट इज द लेजिस्लेटिव ऑर्गन ऑफ द यूनियन गवर्नमेंट. It occupies a preeminent and central position in the Indian democratic political system due to adoption of the parliamentary form of government, also known as Westminster model of government. Articles 79 and 122 in Part 5 of the Constitution deal with the organization, composition, duration, officers, procedures, privileges, powers, and so on of the Parliament. So, Article 79 to 122 deal is about in Part 5 is all about Parliament. Next, organization of Parliament. Under the Constitution, the Parliament of India consists of three parts: the President, the Council of States, and the House of the People. In 1954, the Hindi names Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha were adopted by the Council of States and the House of People respectively. The Rajya Sabha is the upper house, second chamber or House of Elders, and the Lok Sabha is the lower house, first chamber or popular house. The former represents the states and union territories of the Indian Union, while the latter represents the people of India as a whole. Though the President of India is not a member of either House of Parliament and does not sit in the Parliament to attend its meetings, he is an integral part of the Parliament. तो President Parliament में नहीं बैठते. This is because a bill passed by both the Houses of Parliament cannot become law without the President's assent. He also performs certain functions relating to the proceedings of the Parliament. For example, he summons and prorogues both the houses, dissolves the Lok Sabha, addresses both the houses, issues ordinances when they are not in session, and so on. In this respect, the framers of the Indian Constitution relied on the British pattern rather than the American pattern. In Britain, the Parliament consists of the Crown, King or Queen, the House of Lords, Upper House, and the House of Commons, Lower House. By contrast, the American President is not an integral part of the legislature. In USA, the legislature, which is known as Congress, consists of the Senate, Upper House, and House of Representatives, Lower House. The parliamentary form of government emphasizes on the interdependence between the legislative and executive organs. Hence, we have the President in Parliament, like the Crown in Parliament in Britain. The presidential form of government, on the other hand, lays stress on the separation of legislative and executive organs. Hence, the American President is not regarded as a constituent part of the Congress. Composition of the two houses. Composition of Rajya Sabha. The maximum strength of the Rajya Sabha is fixed at 250, out of which 238 are to be the representatives of the states and union territories elected indirectly, and 12 are nominated by the President. At present, the Rajya Sabha has 245 members. Of these, 229 members represent the states, 4 members represent the union territories, and 12 members are nominated by the President. The fourth schedule of the Constitution deals with the allocation of seats in the Rajya Sabha to the states and union territories. Representation of states. The representatives of states in the Rajya Sabha are elected by the elected members of state legislative assemblies. The election is held in accordance with the system of proportional representation by means of the single transferable vote. The seats are allotted to the states in the Rajya Sabha on the basis of population. Hence, the number of representatives varies from state to state. For example, Uttar Pradesh has 31 members while Tripura has 1 member only. However, in USA, all states are given equal representation in the Senate irrespective of their population. USA has 50 states and the Senate has 100 members, 2 from each state. Representation of Union Territories. The representatives of each Union Territory in the Rajya Sabha are indirectly elected by members of an electoral college specially constituted for the purpose. This election is also held in accordance with the system of proportional representation by means of the single transferable vote. Out of the 9 Union Territories, अभी तो 8 है, only 3 Delhi, Puducherry, Jammu, Kashmir have representation in Rajya Sabha. Okay, out of 9 only 3, or what are the 3? Delhi, Puducherry and Jammu Kashmir have the representation in Rajya Sabha. The populations of other Union Territories are too small to have any representative in the Rajya Sabha. Nominated members. The President nominates 12 members to the Rajya Sabha from people who have special knowledge or practical experience in art, literature, science and social service. The rationale behind this principle of nomination is to provide eminent persons a place in the Rajya Sabha without going through the process of election. It should be noted here that the American Senate has no nominated members. Composition of Lok Sabha. The maximum strength of the Lok Sabha is fixed at 552. Out of this, 530 members are to be representatives of states, 20 members are to be the representatives of the Union Territories, and 2 members are to be nominated by the President from the Anglo-Indian community. At present, the Lok Sabha has 545 members. Of these, 30 members represent the states, 13 members represent the Union Territories, and 2 Anglo-Indian members are nominated by the President. Representation of states. The representatives of states in the Lok Sabha are directly elected by the people from the territorial constituencies in the states. The election is based on the principle of universal adult franchise. Every Indian citizen who is above 18 years of age and who is not disqualified under the provisions of the Constitution or any law is eligible to vote at such election. The voting age was reduced from 21 to 18 years by the 61st Amendment Act 1988. Representation of Union Territories. The Constitution has empowered the Parliament to prescribe the manner of choosing the representatives of the Union Territories in the Lok Sabha. The Constitution has empowered the Parliament to prescribe the manner of choosing the representatives of the Union Territories in the Lok Sabha. Accordingly, the Parliament has enacted the Union Territories Direct Election to the House of the People Act 1965, by which the members of Lok Sabha from the Union Territories are also chosen by direct election. Nominated members. The President can nominate 2 members from the Anglo-Indian community if the community is not adequately represented in the Lok Sabha. Originally, this provision was to operate till 1960 but has been extended till 2020 by the 95th Amendment Act 2009. 2020 के बाद क्या हो नहीं पता. System of elections to Lok Sabha. The various aspects related to the system of elections to the Lok Sabha are as follows. Territorial constituencies. For the purpose of holding direct elections to the Lok Sabha, each state is divided into territorial constituencies. In this respect, the Constitution makes the following 2 provisions. Each state is allotted a number of seats in the Lok Sabha in such a manner that the ratio between that number and its population is the same for all states. This provision does not apply to a state having a population of less than 6 million. Each state is divided into territorial constituencies in such a manner that the ratio between the population of each constituency and the number of seats allotted to each state is the same through the state. In brief, the Constitution ensures that there is uniformity of representation in 2 respects, between the different states and between the different constituencies in the same state. The expression population means the population as ascertained at the preceding census, of which the relevant figures have been published. Readjustment after each census. After every census, a readjustment is to be made in allocation of seats in the Lok Sabha to the states and division of each state into territorial constituencies. Parliament is empowered to determine the authority and the manner in which it is to be made. Accordingly, the Parliament has enacted the Delimitation Commission Acts in 1952, 62, 72, 2002 for this purpose. The 42nd Amendment Act of 1976 forged the allocation of seats in the Lok Sabha to the states and the division of each state into territorial constituencies till the year 2000. At the 1971 level, This ban on de-adjustment was extended for another 25 years up to year 2026 by the 84th Amendment Act of 2001 with the same objective of encouraging population limiting measures. The 84th Amendment Act of 2001 also empowered the government to undertake readjustment and rationalization of territorial constituencies in the states on the basis of population figures of 1991 census. Later, the 87th Amendment Act of 2003 provided for the delimitation of constituencies on the basis of 2001 census and not 1991 census. However, this can be done without altering the number of seats allotted to each state in the Lok Sabha. Reservation of seats for SCs and STs. Though the constitution has abandoned the system of communal representation, it provides for the reservation of seats for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in the Lok Sabha on the basis of population ratio. Originally, this reservation was to operate for 10 years, that is up to 1960, but it has been extended continuously since then by 10 years each time. Now, under the 95th Amendment Act of 2009, this reservation is to last until 2020. Though seats are reserved for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, they are elected by all the voters in a constituency without any separate electorate. A member of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes is also not debarred from contesting a general or non-deserved seat. The 84th Amendment Act of 2001 provided for refixing of the reserved seats on the basis of the population figures of 1991 census as applied to rationalization of the general seats. Later, the 87th Amendment Act of 2003 provided for the refixing of the reserved seats on the basis of 2001 census and not 1991 census. तो ये सब इंफॉर्मेशन की ज़रूरत नहीं है, आई थिंक, मेरे को तो नहीं लगता. ठीक, बाकी देखो अमेंडमेंट ठीक है कि कौन सी क्या है बताया गया था, ये सब चीज़ फास्ट जब हुआ था तो वो इम्पोर्टेंट है. फर्स्ट पास्ट द पोस्ट सिस्टम, बहुत अच्छे ये कॉन्सेप्ट है, समझना ही चाहिए, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है ये समझना. Though the Constitution has adopted the system of proportional representation in the case of Rajya Sabha, it has not preferred the same system in the case of Lok Sabha. Instead, it has adopted the system of territorial representation, first past the post system, for the election of members of the Lok Sabha. जिसको ज़्यादा मिलेगा वही इलेक्शन पास हो गया. ठीक है. Under territorial representation, every member of the legislature represents a geographical area known as a constituency. From each constituency, only one representative is elected. Hence, such a constituency is known as single member constituency. In this system, a candidate who secures majority of votes is declared elected. This simple majority system of representation does not represent the whole electorate. In other words, it does not secure due representation to minorities, small groups. The system of proportional representation aims at removing the defects of territorial representation. Under this system, all sections of the people get representation in proportion to their number. Even the smallest section of the population gets its due share of representation in the legislature. There are two kinds of proportional representation, namely single transferable vote system and list system. In India, the first kind is adopted for the election of members to the Rajya Sabha and State Legislative Council and for electing the President and the Vice President. Okay. So proportional representation is selected for or chosen adopted for the election of members of Rajya Sabha, State Legislative Council and for President and Vice President. Though some members of the Constituent Assembly had advocated the system of proportional representation for the election of members to the Lok Sabha, the Constitution has not adopted the system due to two reasons. Difficulty for the voters to understand the system, which is complicated due to low literacy scale in the country. Unsuitability to the parliamentary government due to the tendency of the system to multiply political parties, leading to instability in government. Additionally, the system of proportional representation has the following demerits. It is highly expensive. It does not give any scope for organizing by elections. It eliminates intimate contacts between voters and representatives. It promotes minority thinking and group interest. It increases the significance of party systems and decreases that of voter. Now, duration of two houses. Duration of Rajya Sabha. The Rajya Sabha, first constituted in 1952, is a continuing chamber, that is, it is a permanent body and not subject to dissolution. However, 1/3 of its members retire every second year. Their seats are filled up by fresh elections and presidential nominations at the beginning of every third year. The retiring members are eligible for re-election and re-nomination any number of times. तो ये एक अच्छी ये है कि ठीक है 3 साल के बाद रिटायर होगा वहाँ से राज्यसभा से, बट फिर से वो आ जा सकता है. है ना, re-nomination is possible. The constitution has not fixed the term of office of members of Rajya Sabha and left it to the parliament. Okay. Accordingly, the Parliament in the Representation of the People Act 1951 provided that the term of office of a member of Rajya Sabha shall be 6 years. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में नहीं है बट रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ द पीपल एक्ट में दिया गया है कि जो राज्यसभा का मेंबर है वो 6 ईयर्स होगा। किस में दिया गया, देखो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में फिक्स नहीं है, ये रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ द पीपल एक्ट में है। द एक्ट ऑल्सो एम्पावर द प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया टू कार्टेल द टर्म ऑफ मेंबर्स चोजन इन द फर्स्ट राज्यसभा। इन द फर्स्ट बैच इट वॉज डिसाइडेड टू लॉटरी एज टू हु शुड रिटायर। फर्दर द एक्ट ऑल्सो ऑथराइज द प्रेसिडेंट टू मेक प्रोविजंस टू गवर्न द ऑर्डर ऑफ रिटायरमेंट ऑफ द मेंबर्स ऑफ द राज्यसभा। ठीक है, तो फर्स्ट टाइम जब रिटायरमेंट की बारी आई थी तब ये लॉटरी बेसिस में किया गया था कि कब कौन रिटायर होगा, फिर उनके जगह नया आएगा, तो वो लॉटरी बेसिस में किया गया था फर्स्ट वाला। ड्यूरेशन ऑफ लोकसभा, अनलाइक द राज्यसभा द लोकसभा इज नॉट ए कंटिन्यूइंग चेंबर, इट्स नॉर्मल टर्म इज 5 years फ्रॉम द डेट ऑफ इट्स फर्स्ट मीटिंग आफ्टर द जनरल इलेक्शंस आफ्टर व्हिच इट ऑटोमेटिकली डिसॉल्व्स। हाउएवर द प्रेसिडेंट इज ऑथराइज्ड टू डिसॉल्व द लोकसभा एट एनी टाइम even before the completion of 5 years, and this cannot be challenged in any court of law. In a court of law, further, the term of the Lok Sabha can be extended during the period of national emergency via law of parliament for 1 year at a time for any length of time. However, this extension cannot continue beyond a period of 6 months after the emergency has ceased to operate. Now, membership of parliament qualification. The constitution lays down the following qualifications for a person to be chosen a member of the parliament. He must be a citizen of India. He must make and subscribe to an oath or of affirmation before the person authorized by the Election Commission for this purpose. In his oath or affirmation, he swears to bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India, to uphold the sovereignty and integrity of India. He must be not less than 30 years of age in the case of the Rajya Sabha and not less than 25 years of age in the case of Lok Sabha. He must possess other qualifications prescribed by Parliament. The Parliament has laid down the following additional qualifications in the Representation of People Act 1951. He must be registered as an elector for a parliamentary constituency. This is same in the case of both the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. The requirement that a candidate contesting an election to the Rajya Sabha from a particular state should be an elector in that particular state was dispensed with in 2003. In 2006, the Supreme Court upheld the constitutional validity of this change. He must be a member of a scheduled caste or scheduled tribe in any state or any union territory if he wants to contest a seat reserved for them. However, a member of scheduled caste or scheduled tribes can also contest a seat not reserved for them. Now, disqualifications. Under the Constitution, a person shall be disqualified for being elected as a member of Parliament if he holds any office or forfeit under the union or state government except that of a minister or any other office exempted by Parliament, if he is of unsound mind and stands so declared by a court, if he is an undischarged insolvent, if he is not a citizen of India or has voluntarily acquired the citizenship of a foreign state or is under any acknowledgement of allegiance to a foreign state, and if he is so disqualified under any law made by Parliament. The Parliament has laid down the following additional disqualifications in Representation of People Act 1951. He must not have been found guilty of certain election offences or corrupt practices in the elections. He must not have been convicted for any offence resulting in imprisonment for 2 or more years, but the detention of a person under a preventive detention law is not a disqualification. He must not have failed to lodge an account of his election expenses within the time. He must not have any interest in government contracts, works or services. He must not be a director or managing agent nor hold an office of profit in a corporation in which the government has at least 25% share. He must not have been dismissed from government service for corruption or disloyalty to the state. He must not have been convicted for promoting enmity between different groups or for the offense of bribery. He must not have been punished for preaching and practicing social crimes such as untouchability, dowry and sati. On the question whether a member is subject to any of the above disqualifications, the President's decision is final. However, he should obtain the opinion of the Election Commission and act accordingly. Disqualification on ground of defection. The Constitution also lays down that a person shall be disqualified from being a member of Parliament if he is so disqualified on the ground of defection under the provisions of the 10th schedule. A member incurs disqualification under the defection law if he voluntarily gives up the membership of the political party on whose ticket he is elected to the House. If he votes or abstains from voting in the House contrary to any direction given by his political party, if any independently elected member joins any political party, and if any nominated member joins any political party after the expiry of 6 months. The question of disqualification under the 10th schedule is decided by the chairman in the case of Rajya Sabha and speaker in the case of Lok Sabha and not by the President of India. तो डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन कौन डिसाइड करता है? चेयरमैन इन केस ऑफ राज्यसभा एंड स्पीकर इन केस ऑफ लोकसभा, नॉट द प्रेसिडेंट. In 1992, the Supreme Court ruled that the decision of the chairman or speaker in this regard is subject to judicial review. Now, vacating of seats. In the following cases, a member of parliament vacates his seat. Number 1, double membership. A person cannot be a member of both House of Parliament at the same time. Thus, the Representation of People Act 1951 provides for the following. If a person is elected to both the houses of parliament, he must intimate within 10 days in which house he desires to serve. In default of such intimation, his seat in the Rajya Sabha becomes vacant. If a sitting member of one house is also elected to the other house, his seat in the first house becomes vacant. If a person is elected to 2 seats in a house, he should exercise his option for one, otherwise both seats become vacant. Similarly, a person cannot be a member of both the parliament and the state legislature at the same time. If a person is so elected, his seat in parliament becomes vacant if he does not resign his seat in the state legislature within 14 days. Now, disqualification. If a member of parliament becomes subject to any of the disqualifications specified in the constitution, his seat becomes vacant. Here, the list of disqualifications also include the disqualification on the grounds of defection under the provisions of the 10th schedule of the constitution. Resignation. A member may resign his seat by writing to the chairman of Rajya Sabha or speaker of Lok Sabha, as the case may be. The seat falls vacant when the resignation is accepted. However, the chairman or speaker may not accept the resignation if he is satisfied that it is not voluntary or genuine. Absence. A house can declare the seat of a member vacant if he is absent from all its meetings for a period of 60 days without its permission. In computing the period of 60 days, no account shall be taken of any period during which the house is prorogued or adjourned for more than 4 consecutive days. Now, other cases. A member has to vacate his seat in the parliament if his election is declared void by the court, if he is expelled by the house, if he is elected to the office of president or vice president, and if he is appointed to the office of governor of a state. If a disqualified person is elected to the parliament, the constitution lays down no procedure to declare the election void. This matter is dealt by the Representation of the People Act 1951, which enables the High Court to declare an election void if a disqualified candidate is elected. The aggrieved party can appeal to the Supreme Court against the order of the High Court in this regard. Oath or affirmation. Every member of either house of Parliament before taking his seat in the house has to make and subscribe to an oath or affirmation before the president or some person appointed by him for this purpose. In his oath or affirmation, a member of parliament swears to bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India, to uphold the sovereignty and integrity of India, and to faithfully discharge the duty upon which he is about to enter. Unless a member takes the oath, he cannot vote and participate in the proceedings of the House and does not become eligible to parliamentary privileges and immunities. A person is liable to a penalty of 500 for each day he sits or votes as a member in a House in the following conditions: before taking and subscribing to the prescribed oath or affirmation, or when he knows that he is not qualified or that he is disqualified for its membership, or when he knows that he is prohibited from sitting or voting in the house by virtue of any parliamentary law. इसको फाइन भी देना पड़ता है, अच्छी बात है. Now, salaries and allowances. Members of either House of Parliament are entitled to receive such salaries and allowances as may be determined by Parliament, and there is no provision of pension in the Constitution. However, Parliament has provided pension to the members. अच्छा, ये अच्छे से पढ़ना पड़ेगा कि मेंबर्स ऑफ आइदर हाउस ऑफ पार्लियामेंट आर एंटाइटल्ड टू रिसीव सच सैलरीज एंड अलाउंसेज एज मे बी डिटरमाइंड बाय पार्लियामेंट एंड देयर इज नो प्रोविजन ऑफ पेंशन इन द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. हाउएवर पार्लियामेंट हैज प्रोवाइडेड पेंशन टू द मेंबर्स. वाओ. इधर इधर क्या है, वो जो जॉब करते उनका तो पेंशन हटा दिया गया. चलो, इन 1954 द पार्लियामेंट इनेक्टेड द सैलरीज अलाउंसेज एंड पेंशन ऑफ मेंबर्स ऑफ पार्लियामेंट एक्ट. मतलब ये कैसा हो गया, मतलब 5 साल के बाद पूरा ज़िंदगी भर इसको पेंशन मिलते रहते क्या, कुछ ऐसा ही होगा. देख लेते एक बार क्या पढ़ते हैं. In 1954, the Parliament enacted the Salaries, Allowances and Pension of Members of Parliament Act. In 2018, the salary of members was increased from 50,000 to 1 lakh per month. The constituency allowance from 45,000 to 70,000 per month, and the office expenses allowance from 45,000 to 60,000 per month. Earlier in 2010, the daily allowance was increased from 1,000 to 2,000 for each day of residence on duty. मतलब क्या बोला ये समझ नहीं. इंक्रीज क्या दिया, बट एक्चुअल में कितना मिलता है आज की डेट में. फ्रॉम 1976 द मेंबर्स आर आल्सो एंटाइटल्ड टू ए पेंशन ऑन ए ग्रेजुएटेड स्केल फॉर ईच 5-year टर्म एज मेंबर्स ऑफ आइदर हाउस ऑफ पार्लियामेंट. Besides, they are provided with travelling facilities, free accommodation, telephone, vehicle advance, medical facilities, and so on. The salaries and allowances of the Speaker and Deputy Speaker of Lok Sabha and the Chairman and Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha are also determined by Parliament. They are charged on the Consolidated Fund of India and thus are not subject to the annual vote of Parliament. In 1953, the Parliament enacted the Salaries and Allowances of Officers of Parliament Act. Under this Act, Officer of Parliament means any of the following officers, namely the chairman, deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha and speaker and the deputy speaker of the Lok Sabha. In 2018, the parliament increased the salary of the chairman of the Rajya Sabha from 1.2 lakh to 4 lakh per month. Wow. Similarly, other officers of parliament, the speaker and the deputy speaker of the Lok Sabha and the deputy chairman of the Rajya Sabha are entitled to receive a salary per month at the same rates as are payable to the members of parliament. Further, each office of parliament other than the chairman of the Rajya Sabha is entitled to receive a daily allowance for each day during the whole of each term at the same rate as each payable to the members of parliament. Also, each officer of parliament other than the chairman of the Rajya Sabha is entitled to receive a constituency allowance at the same rate as is payable to the members of parliament. इसको चार्ट की तरफ दिखाना चाहते हैं यार, क्या बोल रहा है ये, मतलब कन्फ्यूजिंग है. चार्ट की तरह दिखा दी कि इतने मिलता है टोटल, तो लास्ट में जाकर ऐड कर दिया टोटल इतना सैलरी मिलता है, तो ज़्यादा अच्छा रहता. क्या लिखा है, अकॉर्डिंग टू द सेम एक्ट दिस सैंक्चुअरी अलाउंस इज पेड टू द स्पीकर ऑफ द लोक सभा एट द सेम रेट एज इज पेएबल टू द कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर. सेम रेट से क्यों, इतना क्यों लिखना है भाई, चार्ट के थ्रू दिखा दो आप क्या मिलता है. लाइकवाइज दिस सैंक्चुअरी अलाउंस इज पेड टू द डेप्यूटी स्पीकर ऑफ द लोक सभा एंड डेप्यूटी चेयरमैन ऑफ द राज्य सभा एट द सेम रेट. चलो छोड़ो इसको. अब देखो, प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर्स ऑफ पार्लियामेंट बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है कि ईच हाउस ऑफ पार्लियामेंट हैज इट्स ओन प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर. देयर इज ए स्पीकर एंड ए डेप्यूटी स्पीकर फॉर द लोक सभा एंड ए चेयरमैन एंड डेप्यूटी चेयरमैन फॉर द राज्य सभा. ए पैनल ऑफ चेयरपर्सन्स फॉर द लोक सभा एंड ए पैनल ऑफ वाइस चेयरपर्सन्स फॉर द राज्य सभा इज ऑल्सो अपॉइंटेड. सो देयर आर चेयरपर्सन एंड वाइस चेयरपर्सन्स भी है. स्पीकर ऑफ द लोक सभा, इलेक्शन एंड टेन्योर. The speaker is elected by the Lok Sabha from amongst its members as soon as may be after its first sitting. तो members के अंदर से ही कोई speaker बनता है. Whenever the office of the speaker falls vacant, the Lok Sabha elects another member to fill the vacancy. The date of election of the speaker is fixed by the president. Usually the speaker remains in office during the life of the Lok Sabha. However, he has to vacate his office earlier in any of the following 3 cases. If he ceases to be a member of the Lok Sabha, if he resigns by writing to the deputy speaker, तो स्पीकर किसको रेजिग्नेशन सबमिट करता है, डेप्यूटी स्पीकर को. एंड इफ इज रिमूव्ड बाय रेजोल्यूशन पास्ड बाय मेजॉरिटी ऑफ ऑल देन मेंबर्स ऑफ द लोक सभा. सच रेजोल्यूशन कैन बी मूव्ड ओनली आफ्टर गिविंग 14 days advance notice. When a resolution for the removal of the speaker is under consideration of the house, he cannot preside at the sitting of the house, though he may be present. However, he can speak and take part in the proceedings of the house at such a time and vote in the first instance, though not in the case of an equality of votes. It should be noted here that whenever the Lok Sabha is dissolved, the speaker does not vacate his office and continues till the newly elected Lok Sabha meets. तो ये भी एक इम्पॉर्टेंट बात है कि स्पीकर जो होती है लोकसभा डिसॉल्व होने की बात भी हो रहते हैं जब तक ना नया लोकसभा बन जाए। नाउ role, powers and functions. The speaker is the head of the Lok Sabha and its representatives. He is the guardian of powers and privileges of the members, the house as a whole and its committees. He is the principal spokesman of the house and his decision in all parliamentary matters is final. He is thus much more than merely the presiding officer of the Lok Sabha. In these capacities, he is vested with vast, varied and vital responsibilities and enjoys great honor, high dignity and supreme authority within the house. The Speaker of the Lok Sabha derives his powers and duties from three sources, that is the Constitution of India, the rules of procedure and conduct of business of Lok Sabha and parliamentary conventions. Residuary powers that are unwritten or unspecified in the rules. Altogether, he has the following powers and duties. He maintains order and decorum in the House for conducting its business and regulating its proceedings. This is his primary responsibility and he has final power in this regard. He is the final interpreter of the provisions of the Constitution of India, the rules of procedure and conduct of business of Lok Sabha and the parliamentary precedents within the House. ठीक है. He adjourns the House or suspends the meeting in absence of a quorum. The quorum to constitute a meeting of the House is 1/10 of the total strength of the House. ये ध्यान रखने मतलब quorum मतलब 1/10 member present होना चाहिए total strength of the House का. He does not vote in the first instance, but he can exercise a casting vote in the case of a tie. In other words, only when the House is divided equally on any question, the Speaker is entitled to vote. Such vote is called casting vote, and its purpose is to resolve a deadlock. He presides over a joint setting of the two houses of Parliament. Such a sitting is summoned by the President to settle a deadlock between the two houses on a bill. He can allow a secret sitting of the House at the request of the leader of the House. When the House sits in secret, no stranger can be present in the chamber, lobby or galleries except with the permission of the Speaker. He decides whether a bill is a money bill or not, and his decision on this question is final. When a money bill is transmitted to the Rajya Sabha for recommendation and presented to the President for assent, the Speaker endorses on the bill his certificate that it is a money bill. ठीक है, तो स्पीकर ने बोल दिया मतलब वो मनी बिल हो गया ऐसा. ही डिसाइड द क्वेश्चन ऑफ डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन ऑफ, क्योंकि मनी बिल जो है वो क्या राज्यसभा रिजेक्ट नहीं कर सकते कभी भी, ऐसा पढ़ रहे थे ना एनसीटी में था. हाँ चेक कर लेना एक बार. He decides the questions of disqualification of a member of the Lok Sabha arising on the ground of defection under the provisions of the 10th schedule in 1992. The Supreme Court ruled that the decision of the Speaker in this regard is subject to judicial review. He acts as the ex officio chairman of the Indian Parliamentary Group, which is a link between the Parliament of India and the various parliaments of the world. He also acts as the ex officio chairman of the Conference of Presiding Officers of Legislative Bodies in the country. He appoints the chairman of all the parliamentary committees of the Lok Sabha and supervises their functioning. He himself is the chairman of the Business Advisory Committee, the Rules Committee and the General Purpose Committee. Independence and impartiality. As the office of the Speaker is vested with great prestige, position and authority, independence and impartiality becomes its sine qua non. The following provision ensure the independence and impartiality of the office of the Speaker. He is provided with a security of tenure. He can be removed only by a resolution passed by the Lok Sabha by a special majority. That is a majority of all the 10 members of the House and not by an ordinary majority, a majority of the members present and voting in the House. This motion of removal can be considered and discussed only when it has the support of at least 50 members. His salaries and allowances are fixed by Parliament. They are charged on the Consolidated Fund of India and thus are not subject to the annual vote of Parliament. His work and conduct cannot be discussed and criticized in the Lok Sabha except on a substantive motion. His powers of regulating procedure or conducting business or maintaining order in the House are not subject to the jurisdiction of any court. He can vote in the first instance. He can only exercise a casting vote in the event of a tie. He cannot vote in the first instance. This makes the position of Speaker impartial. He is given a very high position in the order of precedence. He is placed at 7th rank along with the Chief Justice of India. This means he has a higher rank than all cabinet ministers except the Prime Minister or Deputy Prime Minister. इन ब्रिटेन द स्पीकर इज स्ट्रिक्टली अ नॉन पार्टी मैन, तो इसका रैंक है 7th रैंक है। आई थिंक इसके ऊपर एक क्वेश्चन मैंने कभी पढ़ा था, MCQ टाइप। देयर इज ए कन्वेंशन दैट द स्पीकर हैज टू रिजाइन फ्रॉम हिज पार्टी एंड रिमेन पॉलिटिकली न्यूट्रल। दिस हेल्दी कन्वेंशन इज नॉट फुली एस्टेब्लिश्ड इन इंडिया where the speaker does not resign from the membership of his party on his election to the exalted office. Deputy Speaker of Lok Sabha. Like the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker is also elected by the Lok Sabha itself from amongst its members. He is elected after the election of the Speaker has taken place. The date of election of the Deputy Speaker is fixed by the Speaker. Whenever the office of the Deputy Speaker falls vacant, the Lok Sabha elects another member to fill the vacancy. Like the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker remains in office usually during the life of the Lok Sabha. However, he may vacate his office earlier in any of the following three cases: if he ceases to be a member of the Lok Sabha, if he resigns by writing to the Speaker, and if he is removed by a resolution passed by a majority of all the then members of the Lok Sabha. Such a resolution can be moved only after giving 14 days advance notice. The Deputy Speaker performs the duties of the Speaker's office when it is vacant. He also acts as the Speaker when the latter is absent from the sitting of the House. In both the cases, he assumes all the powers of the Speaker. He also presides over the joint sitting of both the Houses of Parliament, in case the Speaker is absent from such a sitting. It should be noted here that the Deputy Speaker is not subordinate to the Speaker. He is directly responsible to the House. The Deputy Speaker has one special privilege, that is, whenever he is appointed as a member of a Parliament committee, he automatically becomes its chairman. Like the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, while presiding over the House, cannot vote in the first instance. He can only exercise a casting vote in the case of a tie. Further, when a resolution for the removal of the Deputy Speaker is under consideration of the House, he cannot preside at the sitting of the House, though he may be present. When the Speaker presides over the House, the Deputy Speaker is like any other ordinary member of the House. ठीक है, जब स्पीकर है तब उनका कोई रोल नहीं है. He can speak in the House, participate in its proceedings and vote on any question before the House. The Deputy Speaker is entitled to a regular salary and allowance fixed by Parliament and charged on the Consolidated Fund of India. Up to the 10th Lok Sabha, both the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker are usually from the ruling party. Since the 11th Lok Sabha, there has been a consensus that the Speaker comes from the ruling party or ruling alliance and the post of Deputy Speaker goes to the main opposition party. तो ये रूल चेंज हुआ 11th लोक सभा के बाद. The Speaker and the Deputy Speaker, while assuming their offices, do not make and subscribe any separate oath or affirmation. The institution of Speaker and Deputy Speaker originated in India in 1921 under the provisions of the Government of India Act of 1919 Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. At that time, the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker are called the President and Deputy President respectively, and the same nomenclature continued till 1947. Before 1921, the Governor General of India used to preside over the meetings of the Central Legislative Council. In 1921, the Frederick White and Sachidanand Sinha were appointed by the Governor General of India as the first Speaker and the first Deputy Speaker respectively of the Central Legislative Assembly. In 1925, Vitalbhai J. Patel became the first Indian and the first elected Speaker of the Central Legislative Assembly. The Government of India Act of 1935 changed the nomenclatures of President and Deputy President of the Central Legislative Assembly to the Speaker and Deputy Speaker. तो 1935 के एक्ट जो है उसमें ये nomenclature change हुआ था. However, the old nomenclatures continued till 1947 as the federal part of the 1935 Act was not implemented. G.V. Mavalankar and Anantha Sairam Iyengar had the distinction of being the first Speaker and the first Deputy Speaker respectively of the Lok Sabha. G.V. Mavalankar also held the post of Speaker in the Constituent Assembly as well as the Provisional Parliament. He held the post of Speaker of Lok Sabha continuously for 1 decade from 1946 to 1956. So, panel of chairpersons of Lok Sabha. Under the rules of Lok Sabha, the Speaker nominates from amongst the members a panel of not more than 10 chairpersons. Any of them can preside over the House in the absence of the Speaker or the Deputy Speaker. He has the same powers as the Speaker when so presiding. He holds office until a new panel of chairpersons is nominated. When a member of the panel of chairpersons is also not present, any other person is determined by House acts as the speaker. ये बहुत complicated है भाई. It must be emphasized here that a member of the panel of chairpersons cannot preside over the House. Okay. Member of the panel of chairpersons cannot preside over the House when the office of the speaker or the deputy speaker is vacant. During such time, the speaker's duties are to be performed by such member of the House as the president may appoint for the purposes. Okay, the elections are held as soon as possible to fill the vacant posts. Now, Speaker pro tem. As provided by the Constitution, the Speaker of the last Lok Sabha vacates his office immediately before the first meeting of the time newly elected Lok Sabha. Therefore, the President appoints a member of the Lok Sabha as the Speaker pro tem. Usually, the senior-most member is selected for this. The President himself administers oath to the Speaker pro tem. The Speaker pro tem has all the powers of the Speaker. He presides over the first sitting of the newly elected Lok Sabha. His main duty is to administer oath to the new members. He also enables the House to elect the new Speaker. तो इसको बोला जाता है स्पीकर प्रोटेम. ठीक है, स्पीकर प्रोटेम. बट हमने उधर एक देखा था कि जो क्या था उसमें राज्यसभा का जो चेयरमैन होता है वो जब तक नया नहीं बन जाते तब तक वो रिजाइन नहीं करते. कुछ ऐसा पढ़ा ना हमने पहला, देखा, इतना भी याद नहीं रह रहा है. When the new speaker is elected by the House, the office of the Speaker pro tem ceases to exist. Hence, this office is a temporary office existing for a few days. Now, Chairman of Rajya Sabha. The presiding officer of the Rajya Sabha is known as the Chairman. The Vice President of India is the ex officio Chairman of the Rajya Sabha. During any period when the Vice President acts as President or discharges the function of the President, he does not perform the duties of the office of the Chairman of Rajya Sabha. Okay. The chairman of the Rajya Sabha can be removed from his office only if he is removed from the office of the Vice President. As a presiding officer, the powers and functions of the chairman in the Rajya Sabha are similar to those of the speaker in the Lok Sabha. However, the speaker has two special powers which are not enjoyed by the chairman. The speaker decides whether a bill is a money bill or not, and his decision on this question is final. The speaker presides over a joint sitting of two houses of पार्लियामेंट. जब दो हाउसेस का बीच में जॉइंट मीटिंग सीटिंग होगा तब स्पीकर वो मीटिंग प्रिसाइड करेगा. तो एक दो स्पेशल पावर है. अनलाइक द स्पीकर हु इज ए मेंबर ऑफ द हाउस, द चेयरमैन इज नॉट ए मेंबर ऑफ द हाउस, बट लाइक द स्पीकर the chairman also cannot vote in the first instance. He too can cast a vote in the case of an equality of votes. The vice president cannot preside over a sitting of the Rajya Sabha as its chairman when a resolution for his removal is under consideration. However, he can be present and speak in the house and can take part in proceedings without voting even at such a time. While the speaker can vote in the first instance when resolution for his removal is under consideration of the Lok Sabha. As in case of the speaker, the salaries and allowances of the chairman are also fixed by the parliament. They are charged on the consolidated fund of India and thus are not subject to the annual vote of parliament. During any period when the vice president acts as president or discharges the functions of the president, he is not entitled to any salary or allowance payable to the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. But he is paid the salary and allowance of the president during such a time. Now, deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha. The deputy chairman is elected by the Rajya Sabha itself from amongst its members. Whenever the office of the deputy chairman falls vacant, the Rajya Sabha elects another member to fill the vacant. The deputy chairman vacates his office in any of the following three cases: if he ceases to be a member of the Rajya Sabha, if he resigns by writing to the chairman, If he is removed by resolution passed by majority of all the then members of the Rajya Sabha, such a resolution can be moved only after giving 14 days advance notice. The deputy chairman performs the duties of the chairman's office when it is vacant or when the vice president acts as president or discharges the functions of the president. He also acts as the chairman when the latter is absent from the sitting of the house. In both the cases, he has all the powers of the chairman. It should be emphasized here that the deputy chairman is not subordinate to the chairman. He is directly responsible to the Rajya Sabha. Like the chairman, the deputy chairman, while presiding over the house, cannot vote in the फर्स्ट इंस्टेंस. सबके लिए सेम है, बट ये एक ही बार बार बात लिखा जा रहा है, तो ये सबको एक सिस्टमेटिकली टेबलेट फॉर्म में दिया जा सकता था, इसको बनाया जा सकता था, है ना. और इसमें कंफ्यूज भी ज़्यादा हो रहा है क्योंकि हम कंपैरिजन नहीं कर पा रहे, तो वो याद करने में कठिनाई हो रहा है. ओके, सो further, when a resolution for the removal of the deputy chairman is under consideration of the house, he cannot preside over a sitting of the house, though he may be present. तो इसके बारे में हम देखेंगे, कुछ अगर अलग रिसोर्सेस मिल जाए तो वो शेयर करेंगे हम टेबुलेट फॉर्मेट बना. When the chairman presides over the house, the deputy chairman is like any other ordinary member of the house. He can speak in the house, participate in its proceeding and vote on any question before the house. देखो सबके लिए ये पहले ये लाइन सेम डिटो लाइन हम पहले भी पढ़े हैं. Like the chairman, the deputy chairman is also entitled to a regular salary and allowance. वही सेम बात है, they are fixed by parliament and are charged on the consolidated fund of India. वही बार बार लिखना नहीं चाहिए था इससे, मतलब कुछ कंसोलिडेटेड बनाना था इसको. चलो, पैनल ऑफ वाइस चेयरपर्सन ऑफ राज्यसभा. अंडर द रूल्स ऑफ राज्यसभा, द चेयरमैन नॉमिनेट्स फ्रॉम अमोंग्स द मेंबर्स ए पैनल ऑफ वाइस चेयरपर्सन. एनी one of them can preside over the house in the absence of the chairman or the deputy chairman. देखो हम कभी कभी यूज़ करते हैं कि चेयरमैन चेयर वुमेन क्यों बताना है, मतलब मैन एक हो ना, चेयरमैन एक वुमेन भी हो सकते, तो फिर उसको चेयरमैन कैसे बोल सकते, तो हम चेयर पर्सन बोलते हैं. बट देखो हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में क्या है कि चेयरमैन अलग है, मतलब एक ही पर्सन है, और जो चेयर पर्सन है वो एक ग्रुप है ना. ये देखो ये पूरा नॉमिनेट्स फ्रॉम अमोंग्स द मेंबर्स, ये पैनल पूरा पैनल है, वाइस चेयरपर्सन या फिर चेयरपर्सन जो भी हो रहा है. ही हैज़ द सेम पावर्स एज द चेयरमैन व्हेन सो प्रिसाइडिंग. Then he holds office until a new panel of vice chairpersons is nominated. When a member of the panel of vice chairpersons is also not present, any other person as determined by the house acts as the chairman. It must be emphasized here that a member of the panel of vice chairpersons cannot preside over the house when the office of the chairman or the deputy chairman is vacant. यही बात वही पे भी था लोकसभा में भी. During such time, the chairman's duties are to be performed by such member of the house as the president may appoint for the purpose. The elections are held as soon as possible to fill the vacant post. ऐसे नहीं करना था. Secretariat of Parliament. Each House of Parliament has separate secretariat staff of its own, though there can be some posts common to both the houses. Their recruitment and service conditions are regulated by Parliament. The Secretariat of each house is headed by a Secretary General. He is permanent officer and is appointed by the presiding officer of the House. Now, leaders in Parliament. Leader of the House. Under the rules of Lok Sabha, the leader of the House means the Prime Minister. If he is a member of the Lok Sabha or a minister who is a member of the Lok Sabha and is nominated by the Prime Minister to function as the leader of the House. There is also a leader of the House in the Rajya Sabha. He is a minister and a member of the Rajya Sabha and is nominated by the Prime Minister to function as such. जो लीडर ऑफ द हाउस होते हैं नॉमिनेटेड होता है प्राइम मिनिस्टर के द्वारा. Okay, now the leader of the house in either house is an important functionary and exercises direct influence on the conduct of business. He can also nominate a deputy leader of the house. The he can also nominate बोला the same functionary in US is known as the majority leader. Now, leader of the opposition. In each house of parliament there is the leader of the opposition. The leader of the largest opposition party having not less than 1/10 seats of the total strength of the house is recognized as the leader of the opposition in that house. In a parliamentary system of government, the leader of the opposition has a significant role to play. His main function. तो ये कुछ अंडरस्टैंडिंग वाली चीज़ है इम्पोर्टेंट. एक मिनट. So his main functions are to provide a constructive criticism of the policies of the government and to provide an alternative government. Therefore, the leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha were accorded statutory recognition in 1977. They are also entitled to the salary, allowances and other facilities equivalent to that of a cabinet minister. It was in 1969 that an official leader of the opposition was recognized for the first time. The same functionary in USA is known as the minority leader. The British political system has an unique institution called the shadow cabinet. Shadow cabinet. It is formed by the opposition party to balance the ruling cabinet and to prepare its members for future ministerial offices. In this shadow cabinet, almost every member in the ruling cabinet is shadowed by a corresponding member in the opposition cabinet. This shadow cabinet serves as the alternate cabinet if there is a change of government. That is why Ivor Jennings described the leader of opposition as the alternative prime minister. He enjoys the status of a minister and is paid by the government. अच्छी सिस्टम है. Whip. Though the offices of the leader of the house and the leader of the opposition are not mentioned in the Constitution of India, they are mentioned in the rules of the House and Parliament statute respectively. The office of whip, on the other hand, is mentioned neither in the Constitution of India nor in the rules of the House nor in a parliamentary statute. ये तो कहीं पे भी mention नहीं है. It is based on the conventions of the parliamentary government. Whip. Every political party, whether ruling or opposition, has its own whip in the parliament. He is appointed by the political party to serve as an assistant floor leader. He is charged with the responsibility of ensuring the attendance of his party members in large numbers and securing their support in favor or against a particular issue. He regulates and monitors their behavior in the parliament. The members are supposed to follow the directives given by the whip. Otherwise disciplinary action can be taken. तो ये whip क्या हुआ एक्चुअल में? एक किसी पर्सन होगा तो लीडर तो है, लीडर के अलावा भी कुछ है whip. Conventions. असिस्टेंट फ्लोर लीडर इसको बोलते हैं. असिस्टेंट फ्लोर लीडर एक होता है, लीडर होता है, लीडर ऑफ द हाउस, और ये असिस्टेंट फ्लोर लीडर जिसको हुई बोला जाता है. ओके. नाउ सेशन ऑफ पार्लियामेंट. समॉनिंग. तो ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. सेशन ऑफ पार्लियामेंट. तो द प्रेसिडेंट फ्रॉम टाइम टू टाइम समन्स ईच हाउस ऑफ पार्लियामेंट टू मीट, बट द मैक्सिमम गैप बिटवीन टू सेशंस ऑफ पार्लियामेंट कैन बी मोर देन 6 months. In other words, the parliament should meet at least twice a year. There is usually 3 sessions in a year. The budget session February to May, the monsoon session July to September, तो अभी चल रहा है, and the winter session November to December. तो ये 3 सेशन हमारा होता है. एक होता है budget session February to May, then monsoon session July to September, and then winter session November to December. A session of parliament is the period spanning between the first sitting of a house and its prorogation or dissolution in the case of Lok Sabha. During a session, the house meets every day to transact business. The period spanning between the prorogation of a house and its reassembly in a new session is called recess. Then adjournment. A session of parliament consists of many meetings. Each meeting of a day consists of 2 sittings, that is a morning sitting from 11 to 1 pm and post lunch sitting from 2 pm to 6 pm. A sitting of parliament can be terminated by adjournment or adjournment sine die or prorogation or dissolution in the case of Lok Sabha. तो लोकसभा में हम इसको डिसोल्यूशन बोलते हैं, बाकी प्रोरोगेशन भी बोला जा सकता है. राज्यसभा में इसको डिसोल्यूशन नहीं बोल सकते क्योंकि वो परमानेंट बॉडी है. एंड एडजॉर्नमेंट सस्पेंड्स द वर्क इन ए सिटिंग फॉर ए स्पेसिफाइड टाइम. ठीक है, व्हिच मे बी आवर्स, डेज और वीक्स. तो मान लीजिए ये जो है 11 AM से मीटिंग स्टार्ट हुआ, 1 PM में ख़त्म हो गया, तो उसके बाद 1 PM से 2 PM तक इसको पॉज किया गया मीटिंग को. ठीक है, सस्पेंड किया गया, तो इसको एडजॉर्नमेंट बोला जाता है. Then adjournment sine die. Adjournment sine die means terminating a sitting of parliament for an indefinite period. In other words, when the house is adjourned without naming a day for reassembly, it is called adjournment sine die. The power of adjournment as well as adjournment signed I lies with the presiding officer of the house. तो ये ऑर्डर्स कौन देते हैं, वही ये पावर प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर के पास होते हैं ऑफ द हाउस. राज्यसभा में चेयरमैन होगा और लोकसभा में स्पीकर होगा. ही कैन ऑल्सो कॉल ए सीटिंग ऑफ द हाउस बिफोर द डेट और टाइम टू व्हिच इट हैज बीन adjourned or at any time after the house has been adjourned signed I. Prorogation. The presiding officer, speaker or chairman declares the house adjourned signed I when the business of a session is completed. Within the next few days, the president issues a notification for prorogation of the session. However, the president can also prorogue the house while in session. The specific differences between adjournment and prorogation are summarized in table 22.1. नाउ डिसोल्यूशन. भाई यहीं पे देना चाहे थे ना टेबल को, फिर मैं नीचे जाऊँ क्या टेबल को देखने के लिए, क्या डिज़ाइन है भाई ये. नाउ डिसोल्यूशन. राज्यसभा बीइंग ए परमानेंट हाउस इज नॉट सब्जेक्ट टू डिसोल्यूशन. ओनली द लोकसभा इज सब्जेक्ट टू डिसोल्यूशन. Unlike a prorogation, a dissolution ends the very life of the existing house, and a new house is constituted after general elections are held. The dissolution of a Lok Sabha may take place in either of two ways: automatic dissolution, that is on the expiry of its tenure of 5 years, or the terms are as extended during a national emergency, or whenever the president decides to dissolve the house, which he is authorized to do. Once the Lok Sabha is dissolved before the completion of its normal tenure, the dissolution is irrevocable. When the Lok Sabha is dissolved, all business, including bills, motions, resolutions, notices, petitions, and so on, pending before it or its committees lapse. They, to be pursued further, must be reintroduced in the newly constituted Lok Sabha. However, some pending bills and all pending assurances that are to be examined by the Committee of Government Assurances do not lapse on the dissolution of the Lok Sabha. Some pending bills and pending assurances that are to be examined by the committee, तो वो lapse नहीं करते. The position with respect to lapsing of bills is as follows: a bill pending in the Lok Sabha lapses whether originating in the Lok Sabha or transmitted to it by the Rajya Sabha. A bill passed by the Lok Sabha but pending in the Rajya Sabha lapses. A bill not passed by the two houses due to disagreement, and if the president has notified the holding of a joint sitting before the dissolution of Lok Sabha, does not lapse. A bill pending in the Rajya Sabha but not passed by the Lok Sabha does not lapse. Then pending in the Rajya Sabha but not passed by the Lok Sabha does not lapse. A bill passed by the both houses but pending assent of the president does not lapse. A bill passed by both houses but returned by the president for reconsideration of houses does not lapse. यहाँ पर देखो डिफरेंस दी गया है एडजर्नमेंट एंड वर्सेस प्रोरोगेशन का. तो एडजर्नमेंट इट ओनली टर्मिनेट्स अ सीटिंग एंड नॉट ए सेशन ऑफ द हाउस. मतलब चल रहा है मीटिंग, अब थोड़ी देर के लिए रुक जाएंगे, तो एडजर्नमेंट हमने पढ़ा. Prorogation, it not only terminates a sitting but also a session of the house. Then it is done by presiding officer of the house. It is done by president of India. तो याद रखिएगा ये एडजर्नमेंट प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर के द्वारा किया जाता है, प्रोरोगेशन प्रेसिडेंट कर सकते हैं सिर्फ. Now it does not affect the bills or any other business pending before the house, and the same can be resumed when the house meets again. It also does not affect the bills or any other business pending before the house. However, all pending notices other than those for introducing bills lapse on prorogation, and fresh notice have to be given for the next session. In written, prorogation bring to an end all bills or any other business pending before the house. Then quorum. Quorum is the minimum number of members required to be present in the house before it can transact any business. It is 1/10 of the total number of members in each house, including the presiding officer. It means that there must be at least 55 members present in the Lok Sabha and 25 members present in the Rajya Sabha if any business is to be conducted. If there is no quorum during a meeting of the house, it is the duty of the presiding officer either to adjourn the house or to suspend the meeting until there is a quorum. तो हमारे यहाँ जैसे कभी कभी होती है कि यार क्लास में 2 बच्चे भी जाते हैं तब भी क्लास हो जाते हैं, मतलब टीचर लोग पढ़ा देते हैं, बट ऐसा पार्लियामेंट में नहीं होगा. मिनिमम एक कोरम, मिनिमम एक अटेंडेंस की ज़रूरत है. नाउ वोटिंग इन हाउस. All matters at any sitting of either house or joint sitting of both the houses are decided by a majority of votes of the members present and voting, excluding the presiding officer. तो ये वोटिंग इन द हाउस है। प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर वोट नहीं करते, ओनली अ फ्यू मैटर्स व्हिच आर स्पेसिफिकली मेंशन्ड इन द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन लाइक इम्पीचमेंट ऑफ द प्रेसिडेंट, अमेंडमेंट ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, रिमूवल ऑफ द प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर्स ऑफ द पार्लियामेंट एंड सो ऑन रिक्वायर स्पेशल मेजोरिटी नॉट ऑर्डिनरी मेजोरिटी। The presiding officer of a house does not vote in the first instance but exercises a casting vote in the case of an equality of votes. The proceedings of a house are to be valid irrespective of any unauthorized voting or participation or any vacancy in its membership. The following points can be noted with respect to the voting procedure in the Lok Sabha. On the conclusion of a debate, the speaker shall put the question and invite those who are in favor of the motion to say aye and those against the motion said no. तो इसको yes क्यों नहीं बोला? आए ना ए की क्या बोलते इसको, और नो। ओके, तो जो फेवर में होगा वो आए एंड दो अगेंस्ट दे से नो। द स्पीकर शैल देन से आई थिंक द आइज और द नोज आज द केस में बी हैबिट इफ द ओपिनियन ऑफ द स्पीकर एज टू द डिसीजन ऑफ ए क्वेश्चन इज नॉट चैलेंज्ड ही शैल से ट्वाइस द आइज or the nose as the case may be habit and the question before the house shall be determined accordingly. If the opinion of the speaker as to the decision of a question is challenged, he shall order that the lobby be cleared. After the lapse of 3 minutes and 30 seconds, he shall put the question a second time and declare whether in his opinion the ayes or the noes have it. If the opinion so declared is again challenged, he shall direct that the votes be recorded either by operating the automatic vote recorder or by using aye and no slips in the house or by the members going into the lobbies. If in the opinion of the speaker the division is unnecessarily claimed, he may ask the members who are of aye and those for no respectively to rise in their places, and on a count being taken, he may declare the determination of the house. In such a case, the names of the voters shall not be recorded. Language in Parliament. The Constitution has declared Hindi and English to be the languages for transacting business in the Parliament. However, the presiding officer can permit a member to address the house in his mother tongue in both the houses. हाँ, जैसे कि हमने अभी देखा था कि जो क्या हो रहा था वो ओथ चल रहा था लोकसभा का, तो हमारा बंगाल से जो वो बंगाली में ही सपोज ले रहा था, तो मदर टंग में बोल सकते हैं। In both the houses, arrangements are made for simultaneous translation. Though English was to be discontinued as a floor language after the expiration of 15 years from the commencement of the Constitution, that is in 1965, the Official Languages Act 1963 allowed English to be continued along with Hindi. Okay. Though English was to be discontinued as a floor language after the expiration of 15 years from the commencement of the Constitution, the official language allowed English to be continued along with Hindi. तो बोला गया था फास्ट में कि 10 साल बाद इंग्लिश को डिसकंटिन्यू किया जाएगा, बट उसको भी साथ रखा गया हिंदी के साथ। राइट्स ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स एंड अटॉर्नी जनरल. In addition to the members of a house, every minister and the Attorney General of India have the right to speak and take part in the proceedings of either house. Any joint sitting of both the houses and any committee of parliament of which he is a member without being entitled to vote. There are two reasons underlying these constitutional provisions. A minister can participate in the proceedings of a house of which he is not a member. In other words, a minister belonging to the Lok Sabha can participate in the proceedings of the Rajya Sabha and vice versa. तो ये बात हो रहा है कि मिनिस्टर का भी पार्टिसिपेट कर सकते हैं, बट अगर उस सदन का या फिर हाउस का मेंबर ना हो तो वोट नहीं कर सकते। मिनिस्टर हु इज नॉट ए मेंबर ऑफ आइदर हाउस कैन पार्टिसिपेट इन द प्रोसीडिंग्स ऑफ बोथ द हाउसेस. इट शुड बी नोटेड हियर दैट ए पर्सन कैन रिमेन अ मिनिस्टर फॉर 6 months विदाउट बीइंग ए मेंबर ऑफ आइदर हाउस ऑफ पार्लियामेंट. मुझे मेंबर ना भी हो तब भी वो पार्टिसिपेट कर सकते, बट ये ध्यान रखना होगा कि वो 6 महीने से बाद से उसको पार्टिसिपेट नहीं करने दीजिएगा, उसके अंदर ही उसको एक किसी हाउस का मेंबर बनना पड़ेगा, तब ठीक है। मतलब आप जाके बैठ सकते हो क्या पार्लियामेंट में? ए मिनिस्टर हु इज नॉट ए मेंबर, तो मिनिस्टर ही बैठ सकते सिर्फ, है ना। Lame duck session. It refers to the last session of the existing Lok Sabha after a new Lok Sabha has been elected. It refers to the last session, that is lame duck session. अच्छा, last session of the existing Lok Sabha after a new Lok Sabha has been elected. Those members of the, तो ये आफ्टर को क्यों जोक करना था, Those members of the existing Lok Sabha could not get re-elected to the new Lok Sabha are called lame ducks. अच्छा लेम मतलब वो डाक, ये तो पता होगा आपको, तो इसको लेम डाक्स बोला जाता है क्योंकि वो री-इलेक्ट नहीं हो सकते. Those members of the existing Lok Sabha. तो इसीलिए इसको डिजॉल्व भी किया जाता है, डिजॉल्व तब तो रिलेक्ट हो सकते हैं ना, आई थिंक. नाउ डिवाइसेस ऑफ पार्लियामेंट्री प्रोसीडिंग्स. क्वेश्चन आवर्स. The first hour of every parliamentary sitting is slotted for this at first hour of every parliamentary sitting. During this time, the members ask questions and the ministers usually give answers. And the questions are of three kinds, namely starred, unstarred, and short notice. A starred question, distinguished by an asterisk, requires an oral answer and hence supplementary question can follow. An unstarred question, on the other hand, requires a written answer and hence supplementary questions cannot follow. A short notice question is one that is asked by giving a notice of less than 10 days. It is answered orally. In addition to the ministers, the question can also be asked to the private members. Thus, a question may be addressed to a private member if the subject matter of the question relates to some bill, resolution, or other matter connected with the business of the House for which that member is responsible. The procedure in regard to such question is the same as that followed in the case of questions addressed to a minister. The list of starred, unstarred, short notice questions and questions to private members are printed in green, white, light pink and yellow color respectively to distinguish them from one another. But ये क्वेश्चन एक्चुअली में पूछा कैसे जाता है, मतलब वो यहाँ पर बोला है दी लिस्ट ऑफ स्टार्ड, आंसर, शॉर्ट नोटिस क्वेश्चंस एंड क्वेश्चंस टू प्राइवेट मेंबर्स प्रिंटेड इन ग्रीन, मतलब पूछने के बाद या फिर पूछने से पहले, मतलब उसको सबमिट करना पड़ता है, वो नहीं बताया. ये कुछ बेसिक सी फॉल्ट है. नाउ अनलाइक द क्वेश्चन, मतलब इस बुक में नहीं लिखा है, अनलाइक द क्वेश्चन आवर द जीरो आवर इज नॉट मेंशन्ड इन द रूल्स ऑफ प्रोसीड्यूर. Thus, it is an informal device available to the members of the parliament to raise matters without any prior notice. The 0 hour starts immediately after the question hour and lasts until the agenda for the day regular business of the house is taken up. In other words, the time gap between the question hour and the agenda is known as 0 hour. So, between the अच्छा स्टार्ट इमीडिएटली आफ्टर दी. अच्छा क्वेश्चन आवर जब खत्म हो जाता है, मतलब क्वेश्चन आवर शुरू होता है फर्स्ट आवर में, क्वेश्चन आवर खत्म हो गया, अब मेन एजेंडा स्टार्ट होगा, तो उसके बीच में जो टाइम रहता है उसको जीरो आवर बोलते हैं. इसमें कोई भी डिस्कशन हो सकता है. इट इज एन इंडियन इनोवेशन इन द फील्ड ऑफ पार्लियामेंट्री प्रोसीड्यूर्स एंड हैज बीन इन एग्जिस्टेंस सिंस 1962. तो ये जीरो आवर का जो कॉन्सेप्ट है 1962 से ये एग्जिस्ट कर रहा है. Now motions. No discussion on a matter of general public importance can take place except on a motion made with the consent of the presiding officer. The House expresses its decisions and opinions on various issues through the adoption or rejection of motions moved by either ministers or private members. The motions moved by the members to raise discussions on various matters fall into three principal categories. Substantive motion. It is a self-contained, independent proposal dealing with a very important matter like impeachment of the president or removal of chief election commissioner. So that is substantive motion. Then substitute motion. It is a motion that is moved in substitution of an original motion and proposes an alternative to it. If adopted by the House, it supersedes the original motion. Then subsidiary motion. So substitute motion and substantive motion, subsidiary motion. सबसे ऊपर substantive motion. Subsidiary motion, it is a motion that by itself has no meaning and cannot state the decision of the House without reference to the original motion or proceedings of the House. No meaning and cannot state the decision of the House without reference to the original motion or proceedings of the House. तो उसको subsidiary motion बोला जाता है. It is divided into three subcategories. Ancillary motion, it is used as the regular way of proceeding with various kinds of business. Superseding motion, so then it is moved in the course of debate on another issue and seeks to supersede the issue. Amendment, it seeks to modify or substitute only a part of the original motion. Closer motion. It is a motion moved by a member to cut short the debate on a matter before the House. If the motion is approved by the House, debate is stopped forthwith and the matter is put to vote. There are four kinds of closer motion. Simple closer. It is one when a member moves that the matter having been sufficiently discussed be now put to vote. Closer by compartments. In this case, the clauses of a bill or a lengthy resolution are grouped into parts before the commencement of the debate. The debate covers the part as a whole and the entire part is put to vote. Closer by compartment, simple closer. Closer motion मतलब which motion moved by a member to cut short the debate on a matter before the House. Then kangaroo closer. Under this type only important clauses are taken up for debate and voting and the intervening clauses are skipped over and taken as passed. Guillotine closer. Guillotine closer. It is when the undiscussed clauses or of a bill or a resolution are also put to vote along with the discussed ones due to want of time, as the time allotted for the discussion is over. That is guillotine closer. Now privilege motion. It is concerned with the breach of parliamentary privileges by a minister. It is moved by a member when he feels that a minister has committed a breach of privilege of the House or one or more of its members by withholding facts of a case or by giving wrong or distorted facts. Its purpose is to censure the concerned minister. Calling attention motion. It is introduced in the parliament by a member to call the attention of a minister to a matter of urgent public importance and to seek an authoritative statement from him on that matter. Like the 0 hour, it is an Indian innovation in the parliamentary procedure and has been in existence since 1954. However, unlike the 0 hour, it is mentioned in the rules of procedure. Okay, 0 hour कहीं mention नहीं था, but ये rules of procedure में mention है. Calling attention motion. Then adjournment motion. It is introduced in the parliament to draw attention of the House to a definite matter of urgent public importance and needs the support of 50 members to be admitted. As it interrupts the normal business of the House, it is regarded as an extraordinary device. It involves an element of censure against the government and hence Rajya Sabha is not permitted to make use of this device. The discussion, the Rajya Sabha cannot use this adjournment motion. The discussion on adjournment motion should last for not less than 2 hours and 30 minutes. तो ये भी याद रखना है. Adjournment motion it introduced in the parliament to draw attention of the house to a definite matter of urgent public importance. तो ये भी अर्जेंट पब्लिक इंपॉर्टेंस का ही है और कॉलिंग अटेंशन मोशन भी सेम है. एंड नीड्स द सपोर्ट ऑफ 50 members to be admitted. As it interrupts the normal business of the house, it is regarded as extraordinary device. It involves an element of censure against the government and hence Rajya Sabha is not permitted to take use of this device. The discussion on adjournment motion should last for not less than 2 hours and 30 minutes. The right to move a motion for an adjournment of the business of the house is subject to the following restrictions. It should raise a matter which is definite, factual, urgent and of public importance. It should not cover more than one matter. It should be restricted to a specific matter of recent occurrence and should not be framed in general terms. It should not raise a question of privilege. It should not revive discussion on a matter that has been discussed in the same session. It should not deal with any matter that is under adjudication by court, and it should not raise any question that can be raised on a distinct motion. No confidence motion. Article 75 of the Constitution says that the Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. It means that the ministry stays in office so long as it enjoys confidence of the majority of the members of the Lok Sabha. In other words, the Lok Sabha can remove the ministry from office by passing a no confidence motion. The motion needs the support of 50 members to be admitted. Minimum 50 members इसमें होना चाहिए. Now confidence motion, the motion of confidence has come up as a new procedural device to cope up with the emerging situations of fractured mandates resulting in hung parliament, minority hung parliament जब majority नहीं बनते, minority governments and coalition governments. The governments formed with wafer thin majority have been called upon by the president to prove their majority on the floor of the house. So the government of the day sometimes on its own seeks to prove its majority by moving a motion of confidence and winning the confidence of the house. If the confidence motion is negatived, it results in the fall of the government. Censure motion. A censure motion is different from a no confidence motion as shown in table 22.2. Motion of thanks. The first session after each general election and the first session of every fiscal year is addressed by the president. In this address, तो प्रेसिडेंट दो बार एड्रेस करते हैं. In this address, the president outlines the policies and programs of the government in the preceding year and ensuing year. This address of the president, which corresponds to the speech from the throne in Britain, is discussed in both the houses of parliament on a motion called the motion of thanks. At the end of the discussion, the motion is put to vote. This motion must be passed in the house, otherwise it amounts to the defeat of the government. This inaugural speech of the president is an occasion available to the members of parliament to raise discussions and debates, to examine and criticize the government and administration for its lapses and failures. तो काफ़ी अच्छा सिस्टम है भाई, इंटरेस्टिंग. नो डे येट नेम्ड मोशन. इट इज ए मोशन दैट हैज़ बीन एडमिटेड बाय द स्पीकर बट नो डेट has been fixed for its discussion. So no day yet named motion. The speaker, after considering the state of business in the house and in consultation with the leader of the house or on the recommendation of the business advisory committee, allots a day or days or part of the day for the discussion of such a motion. पहले से डिसाइड नहीं हुआ, बाद में होगा. देन डायलेटरी मोशन, इट इज ए मोशन फॉर द एडजर्नमेंट ऑफ द डिबेट ऑन ए बिल और मोशन रेजोल्यूशन एक्सेट्रा, और ए मोशन टू रिलेटेड रिटार्ड और डिले द प्रोग्रेस ऑफ ए बिजनेस अंडर कंसिडरेशन ऑफ द हाउस. इट कैन बी मूव्ड बाय ए मेंबर एट एनी टाइम आफ्टर ए मोशन हैज बीन मेड. द डिबेट ऑन ए डायलेटरी मोशन must be restricted to the matter contained in such motion. If the speaker is of the opinion that such a motion is an abuse of the rules of the house, he may either forthwith put the question thereon or decline to propose the question. Then point of order. A member can raise a point of order when the proceedings of the house do not follow the normal rules of procedure. That is points of order. A point of order should relate to the interpretation or enforcement of the rules of the house or such articles of the constitution. So this is point of order that regulate the business of the house and should raise a question that is within the cognizance of the speaker. It is usually raised by an opposition member in order to control the government. It is an extraordinary device as it suspends the proceedings before the house. No debate is allowed on a point of order. Censure motion versus no confidence motion. So censure motion, it should state that the reasons for its adoption in the Lok Sabha. No confidence motion, it need not state the reasons for its adoption in the Lok Sabha. It can be moved against an individual minister or a group of ministers or the entire council of ministers. There is no censure motion, but no confidence motion can be moved against the entire council of ministers only. It is moved for censoring the council of ministers for specific policies and actions. It is moved for ascertaining the confidence of Lok Sabha in the council of ministers. If it is passed in the Lok Sabha, a censure motion, if it is passed in the Lok Sabha, the council of ministers need not resign from the office. But no confidence, if it is passed in the Lok Sabha, the council of ministers must resign from the office. Okay. तो यहाँ पर सेंसर मोशन में काउंसिल अगर पास हो गया मोशन तो काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स को रिज़ाइन नहीं करना पड़ता. बट अगर नो कॉन्फिडेंस मोशन पास हो गया तो सारे काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स को रिज़ाइन करना पड़ता है. हाफ एन आवर डिस्कशन. इट इज़ मीन्ट फॉर डिस्कसिंग अ मैटर ऑफ सफिशिएंट पब्लिक इंपॉर्टेंस विच हैज़ बीन सब्जेक्टेड टू ए लॉट ऑफ डिबेट एंड द आंसर ऑफ विच नीड्स elucidation on a matter of fact. The speaker can allot 3 days in a week for such discussion. There is no formal motion or voting before the house. So half an hour discussion. Short duration discussion. It is also known as 2-hour discussion, as the time allotted for such a discussion should not exceed 2 hours. The members of the parliament can raise such discussions on a matter of urgent public importance. The speaker can allot 2 days in a week for such discussion. तो हाफ एन आवर डिस्कशन के लिए 3 days, शॉर्ट ड्यूरेशन डिस्कशन के लिए 2 days, जो कि हाफ एन आवर डिस्कशन है वो तो हाफ एन आवर क्या 3 days होता है, और शॉर्ट ड्यूरेशन ये मोर देन 2 hour होती है और इसके लिए 2 दिन रहते हैं. द स्पीकर कैन अलॉट 2 days इन अ वीक फॉर सच डिस्कशन. देयर इज नाइदर ए फॉर्मल मोशन बिफोर द हाउस नॉर वोटिंग. दिस डिवाइस हैज बीन इन एग्जिस्टेंस सिंस 1953. नाउ स्पेशल मोशन, ए मैटर व्हिच इज नॉट ए पॉइंट ऑफ ऑर्डर और व्हिच कैन नॉट बी रेज्ड ड्यूरिंग क्वेश्चन आवर, हाफ एन आवर डिस्कशन, शॉर्ट डिस्कशन, or under adjournment motion calling attention notice or under any rule of the house can be raised under the special mention of the Rajya Sabha. It is equivalent procedural device in the Lok Sabha is known as notice or mention under rule 377. Lok Sabha known as notice under rule 377. तो इसको स्पेशल मोशन बोला जाता है, रूल अंडर 377. notice mentioned under Rule 377. Resolutions. The members can move resolutions to draw the attention of the House or the government to matters of general public interest. The discussion on the resolution is strictly relevant to and within the scope of the resolution. A member who has moved a resolution or amendment to a resolution cannot withdraw the same except by leave of the House. Resolutions are classified into three categories. Private members resolution, it is one that is moved by a private member other than a minister. It is discussed only on alternate Fridays and in the afternoon sitting. Government resolution, it is one that is moved by a minister. It can be taken up any day from Monday to Thursday. Statutory resolution, it can be moved either by a private member or a minister. It is so called because it is always tabled in pursuance of a provision in the constitution or an act of parliament. Resolutions are different from motions in the following respects. All resolutions come in the category of substantive motions. बहुत अर्जेंट है. That is to say, every resolution is a particular type of motion. All motions need not necessarily be substantive. Further, all motions are not necessarily put to vote of the House, whereas all the resolutions are required to be voted upon. ठीक है, रेजोल्यूशन मतलब इसमें वोट होना ही होना है. देखो, यूथ पार्लियामेंट. द स्कीम ऑफ यूथ पार्लियामेंट was started on the recommendation of the 4th All India Whips Conference. Its objectives are to acquaint the younger generations with practices and procedures of parliament, to imbibe the spirit of discipline and tolerance, cultivating character in the minds of youth, and to inculcate in the student community the basic values of democracy, and to enable them to acquire a proper perspective on the functioning of democratic institutions. The Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs provides necessary training and encouragement to the states in introducing the scheme. तो यूथ पार्लियामेंट के थ्रू आप पार्टिसिपेट कर सकते हो. ये सब कैसे होता है नहीं होता है इस सब चीज़ में जान सकते हो. डायरेक्टली इलेक्ट ना होकर भी, नेता ना बन के भी ऐसे थोड़ा जान सकते हो. ठीक है, तो यूथ पार्लियामेंट इसके बारे में पता लगाना पड़ेगा थोड़ा. चलिए, लेजिस्लेटिव प्रोसीड्योर इन पार्लियामेंट. The legislative procedure is identical in both the houses of parliament. Every bill has to pass through the same stages in each house. A bill is a proposal or legislation, and it becomes an act or law when duly enacted. Bills introduced in the parliament are of two kinds: public bills and private bills, also known as government bills and private members' bills. Though both are governed by the same general procedure and pass through the same stages in the house, they differ in various respects as shown in table 22.3. The bills introduced in the parliament can also be classified into four categories: ordinary bills, which are concerned with any matter other than financial subjects; money bills, which are concerned with the financial matters like taxes and public expenditure, etc.; financial bills, which are also concerned with financial matters but are different from money bills; then constitution amendment bills, which are concerned with the amendment of the provisions of the constitution. The constitution has laid down separate procedures for the enactment of all the four types of bills. The procedures with regard to ordinary bills, money bills, financial bills are explained here. The procedure with regard to constitution amendment bills is explained in detail. तो चार टाइप के बिल होते हैं. एक हो गया ऑर्डिनरी बिल्स, मनी बिल्स, फाइनेंशियल बिल्स एंड अमेंडमेंट बिल. नाउ ऑर्डिनरी बिल्स. So ordinary bills, that is, every ordinary bill has to pass through the following 5 stages in the parliament before it finds a place on the statute book. First reading. An ordinary bill can be introduced in either house of parliament. Such a bill can be introduced either by a minister or by any other member. The member who wants to introduce the bill has to ask for the leave of the house. When the house grants leave to introduce the bill, the mover of the bill introduces it by reading its title and objectives. No discussion on the bill takes place at this stage. Later, the bill is published in the Gazette of India. If a bill is published in the Gazette before its introduction, leave of the house to introduce the bill is not necessary. The introduction of the bill and its publication in the Gazette constitute the first reading of the bill. Public bill versus private bill. Public bill is introduced in the parliament by a minister. Private bill by any member of parliament other than a minister. Then public bill reflects of the policies of the government ruling party, and private bill reflects the stand of opposition party on public matter. It has greater chance to be approved by the parliament, जो कि पब्लिक बिल है, एंड लेसर चांस जो कि प्राइवेट बिल है. इट्स रिजेक्शन बाय द हाउस अमाउंट्स टू द एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ वांट ऑफ पार्लियामेंटरी कॉन्फिडेंस इन द गवर्नमेंट एंड मे लीड टू इट्स रेजिग्नेशन. जो पब्लिक बिल है, बट प्राइवेट बिल इट्स रिजेक्शन बाय द हाउस हैज नो इम्प्लीकेशन ऑन द पार्लियामेंटरी कॉन्फिडेंस इन द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इट्स रेजिग्नेशन. Public bills introduction in the house requires 7 days notice. And private members bills or private bills, its introduction in the house requires 1 month's notice. So it is drafted by the concerned department in consultation with the law department. Private member bills, its drafting is the responsibility of the member concerned. ठीक है, तो पब्लिक बिल्स को इतने सारे फैसिलिटीज मिलते हैं. अब फर्स्ट रीडिंग के बाद आएगा सेकेंड रीडिंग. सो ड्यूरिंग दिस स्टेज द बिल रिसीव्स नॉट ओनली द जनरल बट ऑल्सो द डिटेल्ड स्क्रूटिनी एंड एज्यूम्स इट्स फाइनल शेप. हेंस इट फॉर्म्स द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट स्टेज इन द एनेक्टमेंट ऑफ ए बिल. इन फैक्ट दिस स्टेज इन्वॉल्व्स 3 more सब स्टेजेस, नेमली stage of general discussion, committee stage and consideration stage. Stage of general discussion. The printed copies of the bill are distributed to all the members. The principles of the bill and its provisions are discussed generally, but the details of the bill are not discussed. At this stage, the House can take any one of the following 4 actions. It may take the bill into consideration immediately or on some other fixed date. It may refer the bill to a select committee of the House. It may refer the bill to a joint committee of the Houses, and it may circulate the bill to elicit public opinion. A select committee consists of members of the House where the bill has originated, and a joint committee consists of members of both the Houses of Parliament. Committee stage. The usual practice is to refer the bill to a select committee of the House. This committee examines the bill thoroughly and in detail clause by clause. That is committee stage. It can सब stage मतलब second reading में ही चल रहा है. It can also amend its provisions but without altering the principles underlying it. After completing the scrutiny and discussion, the committee reports the bill back to the House. Consideration stage. The House, after receiving the bill from the select committee, considers the provision of the bill clause by clause. Each clause is discussed and voted upon separately. The members can also move amendments, and if accepted, they become part of the bill. Then third reading. At this stage, the debate is confined to the acceptance or rejection of the bill as a whole, and no amendments are allowed, as the general principles underlying the bill have already been scrutinized during the stage of second reading. If the majority of the members present and voting accept the bill is regarded as passed by the House. Thereafter, the bill is authenticated by the presiding officer of the House and transmitted to the second House for consideration and approval. A bill is deemed to have been passed by the Parliament only when both the Houses have agreed to it, either with or without amendments. Now bill in the second house, तो राज्यसभा में गया या फिर राज्यसभा से लोकसभा में आया. और द बिल passes through all the 3 stages. यहाँ पर भी वही फर्स्ट रीडिंग, सेकंड रीडिंग, थर्ड रीडिंग फॉलो होगा. दैट इज फर्स्ट रीडिंग, सेकंड रीडिंग, थर्ड रीडिंग. देयर आर 4 alternatives before this house. It may pass the bill as sent by the first house without amendments. It may pass the bill with amendments and return it to the first house for reconsideration. It may reject the bill altogether, and it may not take any action and thus keep the bill pending. If the second house passes the bill without any amendments, or the first house accepts the amendment suggested by the second house, the bill is deemed to have been passed by both houses and the same is sent to the president for his assent. On the other hand, if the first house rejects the amendment suggested by the second house, or the second house rejects the bill altogether, or the second house does not take any action for 6 months, a deadlock is seemed to have been taken place, right? To resolve such a deadlock, the President can summon a joint sitting of the 2 houses. If the majority of members present and voting in the joint sitting approves the bill is deemed to have been passed by both the houses. Assent of the President. Every bill after being passed by both houses of Parliament, either singly or at a joint sitting, is presented to the President for his assent. There are 3 alternatives before the President. He may give his assent to the bill, he may withhold his assent to the bill, he may return the bill for reconsideration of the houses. If the President gives his assent to the bill becomes an act and is placed on the statute book. If the President withholds his assent to the bill, it ends and does not become an act. If the President returns the bill for reconsideration and if it is passed by both the houses again with or without amendments and presented to the President for his assent, the President must give his assent to the bill. अगर रिपीट हो गया सेकेंड बार भेज देंगे तो तब तो देना ही पड़ेगा assent. Thus the President enjoys only a suspensive veto. मतलब पकड़ में रख दिया और कुछ नहीं डिसीजन लिया, पेंडिंग में डाल दिया, तो उसको सस्पेंसिव वीटो बोला जाता है. ठीक है, तो यहाँ तक कि हम पढ़ते हैं. अभी ये शोर शराबा थोड़ा बढ़ गया है 4-5 में, तो यहीं पे रुकते हैं हम. इस चैप्टर कंप्लीट नहीं हुआ, और भी एक वीडियो बनाना पड़ेगा. देखो 1.5 घंटा लगभग हो गया, तो और बड़ा भी नहीं करेंगे वीडियो को. थैंक यू.